أهلا بكل الذين ينضموا للاستماع إلى راديو بلدي أول راديو عربي أمريكي ويعنى بقضايا العرب في المهجر. برامجنا في راديو بلدي كل يوم جمعة من 8 وحتى 9 صباحا مع ليلى الحسيني في بث حي ومباشر عبر WNZK Radio 690 AM. صباح الخير بلدي، صباح الخير لكل مستمعينا.
Welcome to Radio Baladi, the first Arab, Middle Eastern and American simulcast radio show. Radio Baladi is broadcast every Friday morning on WNZK 690 AM from 8 until 9 Eastern Time on Good Morning Michigan with Layla Al-Husseini. Our call-in number 248-557-3300. And now, stay tuned for the best radio talk show on Arab and American issues with your host, Layla Al-Husseini.
This is Dr. Sahar Khamis. Join me on the third Friday of each month at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'll be discussing some of the most important current political, economic, and social issues in my program, The Bridge. On Radio Baladi, on America's Voice of the Arab, WNZK 690 AM and WZMV 700 AM. Good morning, everybody. This is your host, Dr. Sahar Khamis, Associate Professor in the Department of Communication at the University of Maryland, College Park, and an expert on Arab and Muslim media. Welcome to a new show on Radio Baladi. Today we are discussing building bridges, cultural exchange in a changing world. In today's modern but much troubled world, it is vital to discuss the importance of intercultural dialogue and building bridges of intercultural communication and cultural exchange. In this particular context, special attention should be paid to the importance of youth exchange programs in general and their significance during the current challenges and changes in our modern world in particular, especially in terms of fostering better understanding and better relations between the Muslim world and the West, and correcting false misconceptions and false stereotypes. And it's also important to talk about how social media can be effectively used in this context and in this respect. With me this morning discussing this important topic are two experts in this field, Mr. Kyle Kessler and Mrs. Sahar Taman. Mr. Kyle Kessler is Program Officer for Secondary School Programs at American Council for International Education. He attended school at Missouri Southern University, where he obtained his bachelor's degree in political science and Spanish from Missouri Southern State University. After graduation, Kyle joined the US Peace Corps, a volunteer organization, and he eventually went on to work for American Council for International Education in Washington, D.C. He currently works with multiple programs helping to facilitate workshops, trainings, and other learning activities and initiatives. Most of his time is spent working on the Kennedy Lugar Youth Exchange and Study Program, a State Department-funded exchange program for students from countries with significant Muslim populations, and the Youth Solidarity and English Language Program with Afghan and Ethiopian high school students. My second guest, Mrs. Sahar Taman, is the founder of the Egyptian-American Dialogue Initiative, which attempts to rebuild dialogue and reconciliation among the Egyptian-American community in the Washington, D.C. area amid recent divisions and polarization resulting from the many changes and upheavals in Egypt. She is also someone who has worked extensively in the area of professional and societal dialogue, and she has helped to develop many initiatives in this regard. Mrs. Taman received the 2010 National Award for Citizen Diplomacy from the U.S. Center for Citizen Diplomacy for her work in the area of U.S.-Muslim relations. And in 2011, she received the Piece by Piece Women, Power and Peace Connection Point Award for building dialogue and understanding between Arab, Muslim, and Western women. Mrs. Taman currently serves as alumni manager for the Kennedy Lugar Youth Exchange and Study Program, known as YES, at American Council for International Education. Welcome to the show, everybody.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Great. I would like to start with you, Kyle, and I want you to tell me what got you interested in this kind of work in the first place, please.
Yeah, thank you, Sahar. That's a very good question. I became interested in this kind of work in that youth exchange and youth exchange programs when I was first in the Peace Corps. I actually was an exchange student myself in university. I went on a 6-month-long exchange between my university in Missouri and a university in Santiago, Chile, in South America. And that really got me excited about seeing new cultures, getting outside of my comfort zone, really learning about people that were different than me in the world. And I think that started something. And then when I got back, I did a couple of different programs, kind of, again, to see new parts of the world. And I ended up signing up for the U.S. Peace Corps, which is a 2-year commitment in an area of the world to facilitate community development. And I went and lived in Central Asia, in Kyrgyzstan, for 2 years during that program. And when I was there, I met different students who were alumni of the State Department Exchange Program, FLEX, which is a program for students from the former Soviet Union. And I was really amazed by those students, and I was amazed by not only the people that the program had helped them become, but by the perspective they had on their world. It was just really well-rounded for youth so young. And when I came back to America, I worked really hard to make myself to get myself involved in helping implement those programs.
Very good. This is a very interesting background, and I'm sure it did help you to get a better understanding of different groups of young people and how to best deal with them. And Sahar Taman, if I was to ask you the very same question, what got you interested in this type of work in the first place, please?
Yes, good morning. So my experience is a little bit different. I didn't have an exchange experience myself. I never went to live, for example, in another country in a host family. So my perspective comes from my bicultural background because I grew up in the United States. I came here as a child from Egypt. So the bicultural background already gives me that perspective every day of my life that there are a lot of issues in the world, there are a lot of societal problems, a lot of international miscommunication, and I went into programs that work on those exchanges, build the cultural bridges, and build the understanding with the need to see what could I do to make a difference. And I have found, just like Kyle has, so much power in these programs, whether it's working with youth, where, you know, it's almost visibly you're visibly capable of seeing the difference, seeing that a person going through that exchange, which actually is a transformation. I think sometimes the word exchange or exchange program doesn't do enough credit to what the experience is. So I've seen that visibly come out with people who have such a change in there. Yeah.
I totally agree with you, and as in self-disclosure, as someone who was a foreign exchange student myself, as an AFSer who came to the U.S. when I was in high school, I did find it to be a very transforming experience. It did make a huge difference in my life and my outlook on dealing with people of different cultures and different backgrounds. It's just an experience that you will never forget for the rest of your life, that's for sure. And Kyle, if you can just give us an idea about the nature of the work that the American Council for International Education engages in general. Can you please give us just some background on that?
Sure. Well, American Councils is an organization that's been around for, I believe, we just celebrated our 40th anniversary. And really it's an organization, a nonprofit organization that focuses on the work that can be done when you basically exchange ideas internationally, and that's through a lot of different programs. There are programs that we fund. We help implement programs with high school students, with university students, and professionals, most of which are funded by the State Department through the Bureau of Education and Cultural Affairs, but also through funded through different embassies or different funds or through private donors. And basically, the programs that I focus on are youth exchange programs, especially the Kennedy Lugar Youth Exchange and Study Program that recruits students from countries with significant Muslim populations, which is a very diverse set of countries all over the world, and brings them to America for an academic year to live with a host family, to attend an American high school, and to really integrate and immerse themselves into an American community, to both learn what they can about their American community, but also, very importantly, to share their own culture with their communities and to gain ties with Americans. Hopefully that'll last for a lifetime. I think that's an example of the program I work on. American Councils does lots of different programs, not only for students from other countries, but also for American students sending them abroad also.
Excellent, very good. And Sahar, would you like to add something to what Kyle has already mentioned about the nature of the work and activities that American Councils for International Education engages in?
Sahar, I'm assuming you can hear me.
Of course, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. So to complement what Kyle was saying, American Councils is an amazing organization with 40 years of experience in international education in many aspects. And international education includes language learning, it includes professional exchanges, it includes teacher training, and it actually includes these type of exchanges, which are youth and cultural exchanges. American Councils is one of many organizations in the United States that supports and does these types of exchange programs. But American Councils, for example, on the YES program and on some of the other programs it works on, has several partners. Can you imagine running any type of exchange program, which is has so many aspects, finding students, preparing students for that cultural year, bringing them to the United States, spending a year and living with the host families, finding host families, all of that takes many, many partners. And that's exactly what's needed for this exchange program to happen. And so there are many partners on exchange programs.
Yeah, it seems like it's an umbrella organization. To me, it seems like it's an umbrella organization that has many different programs and many different initiatives working under it. Am I correct in this understanding?
Yeah, well, for American Councils, for example, has particular exchange programs. On one of these, it is an umbrella organization. On the YES program that Kyle described, it actually the administrative lead and does other aspects of it too. But again, going back to the idea that, number one, exchange programs, while they are high in cost, they're also ones where people can do this on their own. People can find exchange organizations and pay for the opportunity to be able to have that exchange experience. And that's actually what's needed. Because it's such a highly intensive cost program, there are scholarship programs, and one of those is the YES program. So students who come on this program do not pay. Again, going back to how these exchange programs are done, independent organizations to do it. Sometimes governments do it. You might find a government that say, yeah, we would like to pay for our students or our professionals to go ahead and go abroad. I'm just giving you perspective that it's many organizations that create this industry, actually. It's a huge industry. It's a wonderful industry to have and to work in.
Absolutely. And we will talk more definitely about that after this brief commercial break. Stay tuned, please.
Ziyad brand. Quality products from our family to yours. Ziyad Brothers Importing offers the finest quality products, including brands like Sultan, Kraft, Nestle, Hook, Rico Picon, Donna, and many more. Ask your retailer to carry these fine products because you deserve the very best. For more information, visit our website at www.ziyad.com. That's www.ziyad.com. Ziyad, quality products from our family to yours.
Jumana Kayrus. You've seen her images on giant billboards across the metro. Jumana Kayrus. You've seen her images on buses across the city. Now get to know Jumana Kayrus.
The war broke out in my home country, Lebanon. I was 11 years old, and I saw a lot of bloodshed and inequality and poverty. You can't grow up in an environment like that and not be affected by it and not want to make a difference. I graduated from Yale University with a master's in ethics. I speak 4 languages. It has always been innate in me fighting for the underdog and trying to do whatever it is I can to make a difference in the world.
Let Jumana Kayrus protect your rights. Call the law offices of Jumana Kayrus at 1-866-YOUR-RIGHTS, extension 100, or visit yourrights.com.
It's never too early to get your child on the right track. From their first words to first grade, Dreamy Children's Center in Troy works closely with parents to provide an experience that goes beyond early education. The highly qualified and experienced staff use a variety of programs that can help nurture important personality traits like responsibility, independence, problem-solving, motivation, and respect. They also have educational programs ranging from preschooling for infants, toddlers, transitional toddlers, and pre-K to Montessori-approved programs and bilingual curriculums for young children. They're open from 6 a.m. to 6:30 p.m., can provide breakfast, lunch, and dinner with snacks in between, and can also arrange for after-school pickup. Dreamy Children's Center in Troy is located at 37373 DeQuinder, just above 16 Mile Road, and can be found on Facebook at Dreamy Children's Center. Ask about the free preschool program. Call today, 248-680-9170, 248-680-9170.
This is Dr. Sahar Tamiz. Join me on the third Friday of each month at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'll be discussing some of the most important current political, economic, and social issues in my program, The Bridge. On Radio Baladi, on America's Voice of the Arab, WNDK 690 AM and WZMV 700 AM. Welcome back to the show, everybody. This is your host, Dr. Sahar Kamiz, and we are discussing today building bridges, cultural exchange in a changing world. And with me this morning are 2 guests who are experts in this field, Mr. Kyle Kessler and Mrs. Sahar Taman, who are both with experience in this area of building bridges of cultural and educational exchange. Kyle, if I may just go back to you and ask you about the significance of having youth exchange programs, particularly today with all of the international changes we are seeing around us, and unfortunately with some unfortunate, developments on the international arena, violence, conflict, wars, stereotypes, extremism. What would be the significance and importance of fostering successful youth exchange programs in this particular time? Hello, Kyle, can you hear me?
Yes, sorry. I'm here. I heard the question, and I think this is something that I have a unique perspective on, I think, growing up in the Midwest of the United States. I didn't have a lot of perspective on what was out there in the world, or what the diversity of our world was. I would just see things on the news, and that's what I think a lot of people see today. And sometimes that's depressing, or I think sometimes the news only, especially big media, only highlights the problems we're having. We hear a lot about the conflict in Syria. We hear a lot about events in Gaza. We hear a lot about different, even not just in that region of the world. We hear a lot about different conflicts all over the world. And I think something really unique that youth exchange programs do are bring an actual knowledge of the culture and of a person in the region, but also bring hope and some positive energy and some positive knowledge about different areas of the world. Myself, for example, when I work on the YES program, which brings students from 40 different countries, I can meet a student, let's say, from Pakistan, or a student from Lebanon, or a student from Libya, and I can get to know that student themselves, and they can share their culture with me, and I don't have to have that culture interpreted for me through media or through media interpretations of conflict. So it's a really personal exchange, and it's a really intimate exchange that I can learn to understand where these students are coming from their unique perspective, from the perspective of someone who grew up in a certain area and really wants to show it. In the same way that when I went to another country as an exchange student, I really wanted to break stereotypes and show my version of America, or how America formed me. It's in the same way. So I think youth exchange really brings a message of hope, or a message of mutual understanding that is sometimes sorely lacking in the information that most Americans receive about other countries.
I think that you touched upon two very important points here, which are the intimate part of the experience, that you meet people face to face and get to know them as persons and as individuals. And the second part, I think, is the first-hand experience that's not filtered or tweaked or tilted by other filters, like, for example, media stereotypes or misconceptions. Sahar Kaman, also the fact that these students are placed in host families, and they get this day-to-day experience of living with host families from a different culture. This day-to-day intimate part of the experience, how does it help in shaping the subjectivity of both the young people as well as the host families?
Yeah, that's a very important question. Or a very important perspective. So the young people are transformed. Anybody who goes on an exchange experience to a brand new place, even for a short period of time, often when they're not just going as a visitor, but they're going to live and experience the life that a host family has, that particular ability to have the personal connection. Over the course of the year, our youth, the youth on these exchange programs, especially in a high school program, learn a lot and they grow a lot. As Kyle was saying, they share so much, but they also learn so much. Even if they have some things in common, as Kyle mentioned, the YES program focuses on bringing students from 40 different countries with, I would say, a significant Muslim population. So not Muslim majority country. For example, we have the Philippines. That is one of the YES countries. Only about 5% of the population of the Philippines is Muslim, but it's an important and significant population there. So, but what it does mean is it's not just Muslims that come on the program. One of the things about exchange programs is that oftentimes the students learn from themselves. So you may bring a group of students from one country, but they've never met each other. They may be Shia and Sunni. They may be Christian and Muslim. They may be from one ethnic tribe and another. And in this exchange, they are also learning from each other. And that's not even to mention what happens when they have really gone through the process and go back home and have an opportunity to implement what they've learned. And we, many exchange programs, including the YES program and others, work on that aspect too. We don't just leave that person who's got that experience and let them alone. We work to make sure that we can support them later on.
Professor Khamis,
there are two very important points you touched on here. The first one, I think, is the intra-culture, not just intercultural, but also intra-cultural. So it's not just between people of different countries, but even within the very same country, you can see different sects and different groups who also need to foster better understanding of each other. And the second thing I think you mentioned is the follow-up part of the program, how you follow up with these people on long term and you try to keep them engaged in important activities. Kyle, would you like to comment on these 2 points that Sahar just mentioned now about intercultural and intracultural and also follow-up?
Yeah, I actually wanted to follow up on your original question about living with host families. To extend a little bit about what I said earlier, I think and this touches on intracultural communication also, but what's the really great part about a high school exchange program like the YES program or like other programs that are sponsored by the State Department and administered by American consuls, when students live with host families, the great thing about it is that they have enough time to get to know a family or know a way that this family or this community communicates with each other. And that helps them to bridge the lack of understanding. So it's easy to go in and yourself break stereotypes, but then once you learn how these people communicate or the language that they use or what their base of knowledge is or what their stereotypes are, then you can start working on the most appropriate ways to break those stereotypes or to bridge that lack of misunderstanding. I think of the fact when I was an exchange student, I really learned bettering my language skills or bettering my cultural knowledge in those places really helped me to identify effective ways to communicate with my host community. And I think that's something that YES students and most high school exchange students that go on immersive programs really learn. And that's an important part of intercultural dialogue.
Absolutely, I totally agree with you. And Mr. Maan, if I can also ask you about the follow-up part, I find this very interesting, very fascinating, that you don't just leave the students after the experience and goodbye, they go back home and that's it. You follow up with them on an extended period of time or long term. What is the importance and significance of this?
Right. That is one of the things I really enjoy being able to be a part of. And that is when the student returns home, they're an alumni. They're an alumni of a program. Even on a professional exchange, when that participant returns home, they're an alumni of the program, and most programs, like the YES program, continue to support that. We do many different aspects. One area is what we call alumni programming, and we actually are able to provide workshops, bring the students back. Well, oftentimes these workshops are done in some of these countries themselves. We bring students maybe from a region, all of them in West Africa, North Africa. We have a workshop. We try to offer multiple workshops. Many of the programs that work on the exchange program, many of the partners have to do this. This year for the YES program, we have 11 workshops. Even some of them are online. One is on conflict transformation. Another one is on project development. Many different aspects, leadership. Workshops is one aspect, and these are opportunities for students for the alumni to apply and come back. Another one is webinar. We now have the internet, so we are able to provide a lot of topics and have these alumni engage. Oftentimes, we look for alumni who are working on a particular area, oftentimes volunteering. For example, you'll have alumni working on interfaith or interfaith in their own countries. They've learned something in their experience in the United States. They go back, they're doing a project. Sometimes the project they do are actually have gotten funding from the YES program or other programs. And we put say, well, now you're an expert. Can you do a webinar? And oftentimes we'll also have an expert, someone working in the field of interfaith, or if it's environmentalism, we'll have an alum as well as an expert on the environment. The last area that often is available, not for all programs, is the ability to provide grants to these alumni. The idea is, one of the things we haven't discussed is not just the hosting experience and the cultural experience. One of the things all participants learn is about community service in America. We call it community service. When people go back home, it's often seen as activism, sometimes the word grassroots activism, volunteerism, and we encourage that. We encourage them to develop projects in their local community, and oftentimes they're able to apply for and get grant funding, small amounts of money to do that. And I have the opportunity to work on that in that aspect. So I've seen excellent things come out of these grants. A lot of times it's teaching English, teaching in the many countries they call ICT, information, communications, and technology, what we would call computing, and bringing the result of these projects to their local communities.
Excellent. And we will definitely follow up on all of these interesting points right after this commercial break. Stay tuned, please.
Dr. Opada Al-Zuhaili is a diabetes and endocrinology specialist with over 12 years of experience in medical research dealing with diabetes patients. Dr. Zuhaili lectures in many American and Arab universities about the latest research and studies related to diabetes. Al-Zuhaili Medical Centers are fully equipped to provide you with the best in medical treatment. Whether Arabic or English, our staff of medical professionals speak your language and can provide for your comfort and care. You're always welcome at Al-Zuhaili Medical Centers. Please visit our Southfield location at 27207 Losser Road, and for appointments call 248-809-5988. That's 248-809-5988. It's never too early to get your child on the right track. From their first words to first grade, Dreamy Children's Center in Troy works closely with parents to provide an experience that goes beyond early education. The highly qualified and experienced staff use a variety of programs that can help nurture important personality traits like responsibility, independence, problem-solving, motivation, and respect. They also have educational programs ranging from preschooling for infants, toddlers, transitional toddlers, and pre-K to Montessori-approved programs and bilingual curriculums for young children. They're open from 6 a.m. to 6:30 p.m., can provide breakfast, lunch, and dinner with snacks in between, and can also arrange for after-school pickup. That's Dreamy Children's Center in Troy, located at 37373 DeQuinder, just above 16 Mile Road. And you can find them on Facebook at Dreamy Children's Center. Call and ask about the free preschool program, 248-680-9170, 248-680-9170. Life for Relief and Development is a nonprofit charity that has been providing humanitarian aid and development to people and communities regardless of race, color, religion, or cultural background for over 22 years. When disaster occurs here or around the world, Life rushes to provide food, medical aid, and shelter to those in need. Life also has development projects that provide medical relief, water purification, educational programs, relief for orphans, and much more. Your help and support can greatly improve these efforts. All donations are tax deductible. For more information, please visit our website at lifeusa.org or call 248-424-7493. That's lifeusa.org, 248-424-7493.
This is Dr. Sahar Khamis. Join me on the third Friday of each month at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'll be discussing some of the most important current political, economic, and social issues in my program, The Bridge. On Radio Baladi, on America's Voice of the Arab, WNDK 690 AM and WZMV 700 AM. Welcome back to the show, everybody. This is your host, Dr. Sahar Khamis. We are discussing today an important topic, building bridges, cultural exchange in a changing world. And with me this morning are two experts in this field, Mr. Kyle Kessler and Mrs. Sahar Taman, who are both working for the American Council for International Education. And Mr. Kyle, if I was to follow up with you on an important point we talked about before the commercial break, particularly the use of social media. how we can use social media, new media. We know that a lot of young people today are using these new media tools, for many different purposes. How can we tap into these in order to engage these young people in much more effective and beneficial ways in the realm of cultural exchange and education?
Sure, that's a really great question. Actually, this is a really good. I don't know if you're aware, but I'm sure you are. This is a really good week to be having this discussion. This is International Education Week, and if anyone, even if we want to talk about starting to participate in this dialogue or participate in this program, even today, if you go to Twitter and you search the hashtag IEW, you'll start seeing a lot of different news stories about different international education programs posted not only by the implementers of the program like Sahar or myself or anyone at our organization, but you'll start seeing news posted by participants on their exchanges right now. I had the opportunity last night to go and watch a couple of presentations by current students on their on their exchange right now for International Education Week, and it was really inspiring to see these young people get up and talk to a room of Americans about such diverse cultures, and really just do an amazing job trying to bridge the gap. Not only giving basic information, but also talking about stereotypes that they've encountered from Americans and how they're currently talking about breaking those stereotypes. But to answer your question more broadly about social media, I think social media's role in international exchange and intercultural exchange and immersive exchange is just a multiplication of the impact of the exchange. We see young students during their years posting a lot of their insights or a lot of their experiences to different forms of social media on Facebook, on Twitter, on Flickr, on Instagram, and it really doubles the outreach because their friends back home can see their experience as it happens in real time and almost go through that experience with them. And it just doubles or triples, it really, to an infinite degree, multiplies the impact that the exchange program is having. And then to follow up on what Sahar said earlier about following on with these students when they become alumni, you see that it's beginning to happen that after they go home, the students and their friends that they made in the United States continue to follow them through social media and be in contact with them in their home country. So we see them still interacting even after they go back home. So we see a student who is, in Yemen and just went to a university event, and you can see her host family or one of her friends from high school exchange following up with her and asking what she's doing at home right now. And that's really great to see the multiplication of the impact of the program through something that is seemingly effortless and as part of our normal days that social media is right now.
Absolutely, and it's very interesting to see these, young people becoming ambassadors for, their countries and bringing back the experiences and knowledge and different exposure that they were able to earn or gain back to their home countries and home, communities and societies, which is very interesting. And thinking about the potentials that social media in particular can have in this particular realm. Mr. Hartaman, if you can elaborate a little bit more on the use of things such as webinars and online-based learning activities and how they can possibly be used and how they can help in this particular context of youth exchange.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we learn with the use of social media is it provides more than the single perspective or the single story on a place, on a country, even on a particular participant. So, for example, you could have a webinar that talks not just about, we could learn more about Pakistan, just as a single country. And we would learn that this is a very complex place that people who live in it, and as represented by the students that come here, are, very, very different. The content of the message of them is is very important. So you mentioned the word stereotyping and misinformation. I would say there's another component to creating the problems we have in the world today, and that's just lack of information. Americans learn that Pakistan is a diverse ethnic place. We have students from Baluchistan, and their story, they talk about their experience in their country. There is a, long-term separatist movement. There is long-term violence in the region. It's very complex, and their expression of being a Pakistani is quite different than someone from maybe Karachi or someone from the Swat region. And when we have opportunities to do more in-depth learning, you can take a webinar, for example. You can have these students write articles and post them to websites and blogs, and you really learn this sort of bigger picture. Another area that I could mention is, for example, the Arab and the Palestinian situation. Again, many Americans, as Kyle mentioned earlier, in the mainstream media, we hear just, violence in Gaza, but we don't understand the very complex pieces of who Palestinians are, the identity. So when you bring Palestinians who come from Gaza and other Palestinians who are from the West Bank, and then there are Palestinians, many Americans don't know this, that live in Israel. They hold Israeli citizenship. And those, Americans can learn so much about who are the Palestinians and how each of them identifies themselves differently. And all of these are part of taking a look at and saying, oh, wow, what can we actually do to create solutions and peace in this part of the world? My point here is to emphasize that opportunities for depth discussions where people are actually thinking and learning are what is needed. And these type of exchange programs allow that. And then all of this follow-up work, discussions on social media, the webinars on particular topic is just a great opportunity for learning in depth.
Absolutely. I also want to focus on the hands-on part where you're not just applying the students with information and, here's information, go and read it, or, go and check this resource. But you're also encouraging them and engaging them in some kind of hands-on experience where they can actually produce their own input. I find this particularly fascinating. Mr. Mann, would you like to just talk a little bit, like in 2 minutes, about this particular point of how important it is to have young people themselves produce maybe certain types of input online and offline?
Yeah. Young people are experts now. You don't need to wait to get a college degree to know something. Your experience and your access to the internet has created you to be an expert at a very young age. We had a student, a high school student who organized students in her high school to put on a conference similar to the TED conference. It was a second time high school students had ever done that. It was in the country of Tunisia. And now she can say that she's actually organized a talk. 250 people came to the event. 180 signed up and 250 participants came. And the topic was social entrepreneurship. It's a small town in Tunisia. And the student looked around and said, what's the problem here? People are waiting for government jobs, but they're not looking at other opportunities for creating our economy and stimulating our economy. So I would say this high school student has an expertise, and she can share that. She's able to share that in her writing. She's able to share that on video. The results of her conference are online. She could easily do her own webinar. One of the things I want to mention real quickly is students do this all the time. They're not waiting for a program to help organize them. They, do their own projects. Sometimes we hear about a project later. Oh, wow, I'm so glad you did that. But they have so empowered, they have so much power, they don't need necessarily sometimes structure. They sometimes don't even need funding. They're able to get it on their own many, many times.
This is most interesting, how young people are now taking the initiative. And as you said, I totally agree with you. They're becoming experts. They're very technologically and technically savvy. They know how to use new media and social media. And they even take the initiative to go out in the world and venture and create their own projects online and offline, which I think opens the door for many positive opportunities. We will revisit this important issue again right after this commercial break. Stay tuned, please.
It's never too early to get your child on the right track. From their first words to first grade, Dreamy Children's Center in Troy works closely with parents to provide an experience that goes beyond early education. The highly qualified and experienced staff use a variety of programs that can help nurture important personality traits like responsibility, independence, problem solving, motivation, and respect. They also have educational programs ranging from preschooling for infants, toddlers, transitional toddlers, and pre-K to Montessori-approved programs and bilingual curriculums for young children. They're open from 6 a.m. to 6:30 p.m., can provide breakfast, lunch, and dinner with snacks in between, and can also arrange for after-school pickup. That's Dreamy Children's Center in Troy, located at 37373 DeQuinder, just above 16 Mile Road, and you can find them on Facebook at Dreamy Children's Center. Call today, ask about the free preschool program, 248-680-9170, 248-680-9170.
Ziyad brand. Quality products from our family to yours. Ziyad Brothers Importing offers the finest quality products, including brands like Sultan, Kraft, Nestle, Hook, Rico Picon, Donna, and many more. Ask your retailer to carry these fine products because you deserve the very best. For more information, visit our website at www.ziyad.com. That's www.ziyad.com. Ziyad, quality products from our family to yours.
This is Dr. Sahar Khamis. Join me on the third Friday of each month at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'll be discussing some of the most important current political, economic, and social issues in my program, The Bridge. On Radio Baladi, on America's Voice of the Arab, WNDK 690 AM and WZMZ 700 AM. Welcome back to the show, everybody. This is your host, Dr. Sahar Khamis, and we are talking today about building bridges, cultural exchange in a changing world. And with me this morning are two experts in this field, Mr. Kyle Kessler and Ms. Sahar Taman, who both work for the American Council for International Education. And Mr. Kyle, I was really interested in something that Ms. Sahar Taman mentioned before the commercial break, which is the issue of giving grants to some of the young people to go back and engage in some types of projects in their own communities and countries. Would you like to shed some light on this particular aspect, please?
Sure, I can start it, and then I think Sahar Taman has a little bit more. She's more involved in this process, but really, I think it speaks to what you were talking about earlier. When you both were talking about the initiative that students and alumni of this program show once they go home to really take this transformative experience that happened to them and really apply it to their communities. I think one of the great things about an immersive exchange program when you're young is that it really helps you to understand who you are, what your country or what your community is, and what you would like it to be. I think when these students are here in America, they really start refining who they are. They're confronted every day with stereotypes or questions. Not all negative. Some people just want to know more about them. But it really helps them to develop their identity. And then once they go home, they see their home community and they want to work to make it the best that it can possibly be. And I think the YES program especially and other programs also provide a real benefit to these students by providing access to small grants or small funds that they can use to put their ideas into practice. But as Sahar was mentioning earlier, they have the opportunity to apply for grants. And she mentioned a really good example of a student from Tunisia who started her own TEDx event. I can think of a young man from Pakistan who went to the Peshawar region recently and did an education project called I think it was called #English Week, where he wanted to provide the students in this area in Peshawar with the opportunity to really learn English and learn skills that could improve their English language learning opportunities on their own. And that was something that he was passionate about, that he had discovered when he was in the United States, and that he wanted to take back home just to help provide these students with more opportunities. So, and I think all of these opportunities that these students come up with when they write and then implement these grants are initiated by themselves, and they come from needs that they see in their communities and from desires that they themselves have. These aren't mandated by anyone from the program that they are on. It's really just driven from their perspectives after their exchange living in their communities again.
Excellent. I like this idea of the self-motivation and initiative, and the fact that they tailor these grants and projects to meet the needs of their own local communities and indigenous societies. I think this is very, very important. And Sahar Kaman, I know that the exchange programs are not just limited to youth, and I know that you also have a lot of work in the area of professional exchange programs with people of different backgrounds, religious leaders, society leaders. Can you talk a little bit more about this element of exchange, not just with youth or students, but also with professionals?
Yeah, if I will go back for 1 second to sort of complement a few things that Kyle talked about. And it's not grants, it's the projects that come out of them. So we want to discuss this idea that these projects, while self-motivated, is a process for the young person to learn how to put a project together. What is the problem? Identifying that. Putting a proposal together, that is an extraordinary process of itself. The growth that they learn, applying, putting together a budget, and then working with a funder and then implementing it. Oftentimes, like I said, they have to go back and find other funding. They go to their own communities. They go to business people in their communities. The amount of growth that happens for the individual doing the project, they end up being a team leader. They're not doing it alone. And then the impact of their projects. We don't know enough of these stories. They're not just happening with exchange programs. There are youth all over. If you wanted to search the internet, there are hundreds and thousands of them. They're not part of the mainstream media. But I can tell you, and Kyle and many other people working with Youth Internationally can talk to you about, young people that do malaria prevention. There are young people in Liberia and Sierra Leone working on Ebola education. There are people working in social entrepreneurs and in job skills creation. There are young people teaching about people with disabilities. As a matter of fact, we actually have people who are disabled, a young person in Nigeria who is deaf, teaching the deaf community job skills. So many good stories. A lot of environmental, a lot of sanitation in many parts of our world. As students go back and they realize in their small communities there are huge sanitation problems, not environmental or recycling issues, but actual sanitation. And they attempt to work on these. It's so inspiring. This is where I'm excited about.
I'm excited about it too, because it sounds really fascinating and very interesting, and I'm sure our listeners also are enjoying the discussion and learning more about it. Would you like to just comment in 2 minutes about this element of professional exchange that you're also involved in? To my knowledge, it's not just limited to youth and young people, but there are also programs that engage professionals as well.
Yes, and again, these programs, many of them come funded from governments and organizations like the State Department, and then there are independent ones. But oftentimes people in a profession they too need to go learn what's happening in that profession and their industry on the other end, off in the United States or other Western countries. I worked on a program that I also had the chance to put together. It was funded by the government, U.S. government. It was about religion and society. And that exchange program happened before the Arab Spring. And I would say there were lots of programs like this that happened before the Arab Spring that were part of what I call the thaw before the Arab Spring, because a lot of these people that went on these professional exchanges, journalists, went to Europe, went to the United States, went to other countries, came back to their countries, for example, in the Arab world, and said, why can't we have this kind of democracy? Why can't we have this kind of way of talking with each other, the professional civility and things that they saw were lacking in their society or could complement their own society? The program I worked on were people who worked on religion, whether they were people in interfaith work, whether there were people who were clergy, and that program were short-term exchanges. 2 weeks, but within those 2 weeks, young people, someone who was a Shia cleric was meeting, someone and living and maybe even sharing a room with someone who was a Sunni cleric, for example. That's the first time ever, and that transformation was amazing, let alone being able to go to a small town and attend a church service or attend a synagogue and actually meet rabbis. The experience of the diversity of our United States allowed so much learning, and again, people, even in their 50s and 60s, no matter the age, can go through that process, transformed, go back to their country and say, what can I do differently to make it a better place? It's such a fulfilling experience to work on these exchanges. Again, let alone our American counterparts learning so much. Learning. So I have so many wonderful experiences that I could share. I've seen entire church congregation hear the Quran for the first time being read into their service, being read during the service, and walking away, many of them very, very touched that they were able to have that and learn from that. So
absolutely. And as we come close to the very end of our program, we just have one more minute. So in 30 seconds, Mr. Kyle Kessler, if you were to just say, what is the greatest reward or really benefit that you personally came up with from being engaged in this type of work, what would you say?
I would say that the biggest reward that I have is just the fact knowing that I work on a program that brings different cultures and different points of view together in a very unique way that lets people have an intimate knowledge of another culture in the world. And I think that is our best chance to building a more peaceful world.
Absolutely. Amen. I totally agree with you. And Sahar Taman, again, in 30 seconds, what would you say is the greatest reward and benefit of this type of work?
I think the greatest reward is that we are making progress. There is hope. We are resolving the problems in our world. And all these youth are our future. They are a part of that.
Absolutely. Again, Amen, I totally agree with you. And I would like to thank you both very much, not just for being my guest this morning in this radio show and sharing your interesting experiences in this important field, but also for the great work that you are doing within the American Councils for International Education and being engaged with programs like the YES program, Youth Exchange and Study program. Thank you both very much, Mr. Kyle Kessler and Ms. Sahar Taman, for being with us this morning.
Thank you, Professor, for the opportunity.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Khamis.
Thank you very much. And thanks also to all our listeners this morning. This is your host, Dr. Sahar Khamis. Thank you for listening. And we're going to join you again soon in another episode on Radio Baladi. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.